Okay. Um, Anyhow, I live in Connecticut, about 300 feet from the Massachusetts border, just near Springfield, Mass. And Nice, quiet, mile away from the street in the woods location. That's now got 3 feet of snow on each side of my toboggan run driveway. So, yeah, more snow than you've got up here. I'm kind of surprised. Um, but luckily not like Providence, Rhode Island, who's got 3 feet of snow. So we missed that one. Anyhow, just so you know me a little bit more, off and on, I've been on the ARL board since the mid 80s with a 6, 7 year break. I got reelected last year after a 7 year break. And I ran again because I thought the ARL needed to be pushed a little bit harder on a couple of really key things. One is working with the FCC, and the other is working with Congress to try to get some things done. Um, for a number of years, there was a lot of disagreements within the board that led to um, some unproductive years. I guess I'll just describe it that way. At the same time, the whole amateur radio has changed a whole lot. I found it really interesting going around to different field day sites last year because um, earlier when I served on the ARL board, they were much different than what I saw going around this last year. Last year, what I saw was a bunch of people my age helping out a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s that were used to parks on the air and summits on the air. And field day was kind of the same kind of thing, except that they didn't know how to put up bigger antennas. So all of the experience, the longtime experienced hams were showing the newer hams that you can do a little bit better than a 50-foot whip. So there was a lot of that. And then there were a lot of field day sites I went to on Friday where nobody was setting up ahead of time. So it was only really a Saturday event. So it's very different, and it very obviously the generations are changing. And I can see just from the presentations here and the discussions here in the hallways and elsewise that a lot of that change is you're obviously seeing it in your own clubs as well. So anyhow, for me, it was a change. Um, what I've pushed for a lot this last year and a half, well, year and a few months that I've been back on the board is to focus much more on telling our members, you, what's been going on with an ARL, the good things that we are doing and the things that we're doing, trying to get some legislation through Congress and also some rules changes within the FCC that have been pending for way too long. Some of the things that the FCC hasn't been dealing with are stuff that we actually filed in the mid 2015, 2016 era that are still sitting on the side with the FCC's been much more focused on broadcast and internet and other things rather than ham radio. Typically, the FCC doesn't pay much attention to ham radio. It used to be that most of the FCC staff were licensed hams. An awful lot of them used to be. Now they're mostly lawyers. You can say what you like about that, but they're much more focused on the big changes that are happening in communications that don't involve ham radio. Ham radio is going strong, and once in a while we do ask the FCC for some changes, and we're hopeful they'll eventually get to them. If you remember last year, one of the main things the FCC got a lot of publicity over was an effort they called delete, delete, delete. And their idea was, okay, let's clean house, let's get rid of regulations we don't need, which is typically something the FCC does every 10 or 20 years. It's not unusual to do it, but they were much more visible about it. And at the same time, they were going into not just, the government was not just looking at FCC, they were looking at all their agencies and trying to figure out where things could be streamlined. And they've been successful in some ways, maybe not so successful, but they are making some changes. Um, for, uh, for us, we've got some requests, or others have had some requests before the FCC to simplify the regulations on amplifiers. Right now, there's a limit of, I think, what is it, 15 dB gain in an amplifier, and that dates from the CB days when everybody was panicked about amplifier, 10-meter amplifiers being converted to 11 meters, I should say. But that's pretty much not a thing that's an urgent issue these days. And now with solid state amplifiers, there's other things you can do in order to keep the amplifiers only working on amateur frequencies. So we've asked them to make some change. Our manufacturer has asked for some changes there that they've been sitting on for 5 or 6 years now. We've actually asked for, Arrl asked for some changes 6, 8 years ago now to allow technicians to have some different access on HF, because right now the HF access is Morse code, which you don't even need to get a license anymore. So Morse code is great, and that's my favorite mode, but it's not everybody's. And I think that technicians should be able to do digital modes on some HF bands. And in particular, one of the important things is to have the ability to communicate not only between digital modes on HF, but on voice modes as well, because there's a lot of coordination that has to happen in order not only to handle long distance messaging, but also short distance messaging. A lot of the backbone of message handling now happens digitally, but you still have to get those messages to a person that can call you on the telephone and say you got a message. So there's some interest in getting some sideband segments as well for technicians on HF bands other than 10 meters, because 10 meters is great when the band's open in the peaks of the sunspot cycle like we're in now, but in 3 or 4 years, that's going to be mostly gone. So again, that's something that we believe still needs to be changed, and we're still hopeful and working with the FCC to try to move that forward. So that's one of the things going on with the FCC. I'm sure you're also aware that in this last year, we made a pretty big effort to gain support from all of you, whether you're league members or not, into an effort to change the FCC rules related to homeowner association antennas. Right now, that's one of the biggest problems we have in amateur radio, is that a lot of people live in either homeowner associations or condos or locations where their antenna restricted by the deeds on the properties that they might live in. The FCC has already, or Congress has already made changes to those rules to allow for satellite antennas. They allow you to have a flagpole. Looks a lot like an antenna sometimes, but it's a flagpole, not supposed to be an antenna. And what we're doing is trying to go straight to Congress to say, hey, you should make the same exception for amateur radio. That doesn't mean that every house gets to have a 60-foot tower and a couple of beams, but it means you got to have, the ability to have something that's actually usable. And so we put together a letter writing campaign that's got tens of thousands of letters from Arrl members and non-members, as well as some family members, and as well as some GMRS radio users to help support our effort. And that's going through a couple of congressional committees right now. Both committees are basically supportive of the effort. The chairman of both the House and the Senate committees dealing with this are on board, and they're working with their members to get the rest of the members of the committee to support the effort. And we do expect sometime in the next several months to have that effort get voted out of committee and go to the full Congress for possible passage. So we're I guess we call it playing the political game behind the scenes to work through the committees, work through the supporters we have. And it's bipartisan support. We've got both a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats involved in it. And I think we're going to be successful, but you can never count on Congress. So you just never know. But we're making a really good effort at it. The hope was that we'd get it through Congress last year. And that didn't happen, partly because there was such a lengthy shutdown late in the year where Congress just was not doing anything. Today they're doing things. They're I think back in full hearings this next week or so. So we may see some movement happening soon. So that's one of the important things that I believe we're doing so far successfully. We've got a lot of the amateur community behind us, and thanks very much for the efforts that you guys have made to help us out on that. Why don't I take a break? Paul, did you want to do your presentation at this point? That'd be great.
So, Paul, I have this mic also if you want to roam around.
I don't have much. I'm Paul, AA1SU section manager, and I just wanted to introduce Charles Pizzo, N1CAI. He's the affiliated club coordinator for Vermont, and he has something he wants to say.
So how are you? My name's Charles Pizzo. I'm November 1, Charlie Alpha India. Some of you know me, some of you may not. I'm not a true Vermonter. I'm a flatlander that came up to Vermont. But I've been welcome to Vermont. I don't think I'll ever be a Vermonter, but I'm here today to give the radio amateurs of Northern Vermont, RANV, a certificate recognizing them as a special services club. I just want to take a minute and speak. I don't know if you guys know, but this year is the year of the club. It's really a good year for clubs and things that are going on with the league. There's a lot of activities going on. There's a lot of different events that are going to be related to this, and also for you guys in Vermont who are club members at different clubs or RANV. I just got on the education council for the governor. So I am going to be reaching out to people because as Tom was saying, it's important to get young people involved, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the club. So with the year of the club. So this year, I think is a good year. I'm going to push for a couple things. I'm down in central Vermont near VTC and Randolph Tech, and I want to get kids involved there. I know there's some people in Rutland that are working to get some kids involved down there as well. I'd like to bring that up here. I'm going to put the arm on Mitch to see if I can get him to do some technician classes for the younger people, and whatever support I can get from you guys would be great. Is there anybody from RANV here today who'd like to accept the award? Okay. So I'd just like to take a moment and give you guys this award, but the Special Services Club Award recognizes that RANV does a lot for continuing education, emergency services, and emergency communication, and just the footprint of amateur radio in the state. Like I said, I'm a transplant. When I first came to Vermont, I ran into more RANV members, and they were like, oh, gee, you should take the ride up north and come up here and hang out with us. And RANV is one of the clubs that welcome me with open arms. So it's with really great pleasure that I present you guys with this today, because you guys do a lot for amateur radio's footprint. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it says on our website that we are the fun club, and sometimes at members' expenses and sometimes as a group, but we always have fun. And you're all welcome to join. It's only $20 a year. Thank you.
Okay, very nice. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, as Charles mentioned, Arrl's designated this year as Year of the Club. You've already seen some activity from that. We're putting the W1AW station on the air from every state this year. I don't know what the dates are for Vermont, but there's two different activations for I guess a week-long effort. I'm not sure who the coordinator is.
We had one at the beginning of February and the other one's in August.
In August? Okay, all right, good. But each state is on. I know there's a portable 4 and a portable 7 on this weekend. I heard them last night. So Massachusetts, I know one of them's going to be the same weekend as the Ham Expo, New England Division Convention. I think, not sure when the other one is, but anyhow. And there's also an award for working the W1AW portable operations in each state. There's going to be an award for just working club stations during the year, and I believe another one just for working any station in each of the states during the year. So there's quite a lot going on with clubs, and encourage you to get your club on the air as well during the year. Okay, so enough on that. Most of you are aware that a year and a half or so ago, the Arrl, like a lot of organizations, ended up getting hacked by some unsavory people. We ended up getting locked out of our systems in May of 2024, which really threw us for a loop for several months. We kept most of our main activities going, sometimes on a shoestring, but it taught us a lesson about investing in IT and IT security. We obviously didn't want to learn, but learned the hard way. We had to go back to the beginning of 2024 and recreate all of our financial data. We had to re-engineer a number of our systems, including Logbook of the World, our DXCC software, which I will point out we had successfully not upgraded a number of times. It was actually running on I guess an older version of Windows, like Windows XP or earlier, and couldn't be connected to the rest of the network just because it was such an antiquated thing. So we were moving data by USB drives or something from it to our main network. But we learned a lot. We've made a lot of changes. We've got 98% of the issues resolved at this point. A couple of things to go, and we're actually starting on some new projects, or more accurately described, some postponed projects that we had hoped to do a year or two ago. So I will say we've done a fairly good job of getting through that. We hope that's not going to happen again, but any business, any company could be hacked. I know a couple of other organizations in my town have taken out some insurance to help deal with that if it happens. Luckily, Arrl did have insurance, and a lot of the costs involved with recovering were covered by insurance. And any significant company should have that in place. We ended up, the immediate issue we had was they were asking for a lot of money to unfreeze our systems. It turned out they had been inside our network for several weeks before they decided, okay, now we know that you don't have anything, we're going to shut you down. And there's no credit card stuff to steal and no money to steal. So they just said, well, just pay us a ransom. And we paid them somewhat less than they asked for, but it was covered by insurance, which was really good. A lot of the work we've done since then to fix, improve, isolate systems, we've had to pay for that, but it was a manageable cost, and things are mostly, almost all back to normal now, I would say. Arrl over the years has changed just like any organization. I didn't mention it earlier, but I actually worked at ARL for almost 4 years when I was in my 20s and early 30s. Had a great time. I was running the contest program for 4 years. And that came after spending a year as a radio operator in Antarctica before coming to ARL. So I moved from California to Antarctica to Newington. Yeah, so, but I was actually born in New Jersey and I lived in Northampton and I got around. But coming back east was really a good decision because there are lots of trees around here and I like trees. And California was full of towns and not many trees. So anyhow, I serving on the ARL board was a really interesting thing for me because it's the first organization I was involved in that I got to look at things from a management level. I've always worked for other people before that, and working with ARL and Robert's rules and the way you conduct meetings and how you're supposed to handle meetings was a really interesting learning experience for me. And as a result, one of the things I did was I got involved in my local town's politics. I got involved with a computer committee that the town had because they were trying to upgrade their stuff. And my work after ARL was working for a insurance company in the Hartford area doing IT work. And so I ended up doing some IT work for my town. I ended up on a couple of boards and commissions, like planning and zoning. And by the way, every one of you should get involved with your town in some way, whether it's helping the emergency management teams in town or your planning department or the governance, first selectmen or whatever they're called in Vermont. And get involved in some way. It's really a worthwhile thing to do. And you can use a lot of things you learn in amateur radio and in your own local club to help the town out. I actually ended up doing one term as the first selectman in my town. It was an interesting year because that was 2008, 2009, when the economy went down to went terrible, and we didn't have any new projects, but we had to keep the old things going. So I learned a lot, but I also learned that elected office can be short-term, and it was. But whatever, my town is mostly of a different party than I am. I'll say it that way. Anyhow, so all that's and the stuff that you do elsewhere applies in ham radio. So use it as a way to broaden your own involvement in your town or your local club. Okay, so what's going on now? I'm involved on the ARL board's Ethics and Elections Committee, which has been an interesting year. Last year was interesting. This year I'm the chairman. And I hope it's not interesting. Ethics and Elections Committees basically exist to make sure that board members deal with ethics appropriately. And if complaints come up, somebody has to take a look at them and make some judgments and decisions about them. ARL for the last several years has done electronic elections. If you're a member, you would have gotten a ballot a couple of years ago when and when there were a couple of us running. I ended up beating the other guy who's a friend of mine by not very many votes, but enough. The electronic balloting has worked out very smoothly. We use a third party to send out information to members when there is an election, and your ballot goes back to them and they do the counting. As it turns out, close to 98% of the votes come in electronically. We do offer an option to get a paper ballot and for you to mail it in an envelope, but almost nobody does that. Most people get the information, they look online and at the statements that each candidate has made and then vote electronically. And it turns out those ballots come back fairly quickly. Right now, the timetable is the ballots go out before the 1st of October. for all league members as of September 10th of that year. And then they're counted the third week of November. So you've got all of October and several weeks in November for campaigning. And a lot of that has to happen early on in that time period because most of the ballots are mailed early on. We're thinking long-term that we probably won't have paper ballots, but we do recognize that there are people who just don't want to or can't handle electronic ballots, and we're still leaving that option open. But in any case, we're thinking of shortening the time period for the election. That's one of our assignments this year, is to see if we can move that to a little bit shorter time period for the ballot distribution and counting. I'm also involved with the Arrl Foundation. At one point, I was president of the Arrl Foundation about 10 years ago. Foundation has grown significantly in the last 10 years. We give out 170 scholarships to really well qualified, mostly students, but not always high school students. There are a number of scholarships that go to, I'll call it people who decide to go back to school and get graduate degrees at a later point in life. But 170 of them were funded last year, and that was for $800,000 in total. Some of them were very, very significant, like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And some were not only that much, but that much for several years worth. And then there's a lot of them, they go down to about $500 or $1,000, which is enough to cover books and other things, but certainly not the full expense of a college education. But it's amazing to see the quality of the people applying for scholarships. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. I look at them and say, if I put in my request for a scholarship, I would not have been in the upper half. I would have been in the lower half of the people that apply for scholarships. There's some really incredible talent out there, and you'll see each year in the fall a bunch of pictures of the scholarship winners, and there's a pretty amazing group of them. Anyhow, so that's a lot of fun. I'm also involved with the board's planning and services committee that deals with things like DXCC and contesting, among other things. Currently there's a lot of activity there. We're trying to figure out, now that the sunspot numbers have pretty much peaked, we think, we're starting to see the number of entries go down a little bit. We're a little concerned about that in some cases. So we're working to see what we can do to make some rule changes to encourage activity. We're pretty much focused on Arrl sweepstakes. That's an unusual contest where you can work people once on one band, and the exchange is a little more complicated than others. So people really like contests where it's fast and easy. They don't like contests where it's a little more complex, where you have to copy serial numbers or other things. So we're trying to figure out how to balance that and not make everything all the same, and looking at ways to improve the activity there. One of the things we decided to look at this as a result of this most recent Arrl board meeting in January, is a lifetime license. FCC, it's possible to have a lifetime license. FCC has been reluctant to do that in the past, but we think we can make a reasonable case to the FCC to make a change there. It would certainly save them money, and that ought to be appealing to them. We're looking at that, and we're looking at ways that we can pass data so that MCOM Air East traffic can more easily be be sent on behalf of served agencies that that might not be able to be sent otherwise. Canadians have worked out something that's pretty, I guess, as well. So we're taking a look at that as a serious possibility, and we'll probably file something with the FCC later this year on that. Arrl as a whole is doing pretty good financially. Take any money that we do make and put it back into the organization in terms of trying to get legislation through, trying to improve on the services that we offer U.S. members, and helping to fund things like the field organization, ARES, and so on. So that's a membership is from advertising. Third is from publication sales. We sell a bunch of books and other things. And fourth is donations. And we've got a fairly large number of people that have put us in their will. We're working through a fairly large number of people who are licensed in the 50s and 60s that are now, like me, in the 70s now, that are getting to the point where you start thinking about health and those other things that you're not going to be here forever. So that's a big number, a large contingent, group that's aging at this point, and we're hopeful we'll see some contributions from that group. Publication sales, it's not growing very much. Advertising sales, not growing very much. So we've made some changes in the mix of publications we sell. They're not all paper anymore. We're trying in a couple areas. We're selling some products like what is the end-fed antenna and a couple of aluminum antennas, a couple of things in that area, particularly to try to get technicians more active on 10 meters this year, as an example. So we're working on different ways to raise money. Organizationally, we're down to about 80 employees. When I worked there 30, 40 years ago, might be more, we were up at 110 or 120 employees. So we're doing a lot more with fewer people, and always on the look for things that we can do more efficiently. And it's for the most part working, but on the other hand, I'd rather see Arrl have 10 programs that everybody looks at and says those are done really, really well than having 30 programs where we do them okay. So that's one of the hard things to make decisions on, is when is something just going okay and can somebody else do it better, or just do it instead of us. So we're always looking at those options about where to put our dollars that we do have. The couple of years ago, the Arrl, quite a few years ago, the Arrl built a strategic plan that was supposed to last from 2010 to 2015. And if you go to our website, you'll still find it. 3 years ago, the Arrl board passed what they called they started a committee to do an update to the strategic plan. And a year and a half ago, they came out with something called a 3-year strategic plan, which is really a misnomer. That's not a strategic plan. It's a 3-year, what are we going to do plan. And it was basically done by some staff members and a couple of board members and maybe one outside member, but not the whole board was involved, and there was no feedback from membership. So I can't say it was a really good strategic plan. Oh yeah, and the last thing was it would become public as soon as our executive committee said it was okay to make it public. Well, our executive committee has not made it public yet. And we're a year and a half in, and next year it'll be done. Theoretically, they're going to make that public next couple months. We'll see what happens. But I'll tell you, it's not a strategic plan, and it needs to be done better. And long term, some people will say you don't need a strategic plan. You just kind of go year by year and hope you're doing the right thing. But it's also very good to not only have a plan in place, a list of the things that you want to accomplish, and also a way to measure what you've done so that you know that you've not only followed the plan, but been successful with it or not, so you can make adjustments. And we're still not doing that well, but hopefully we're moving in that direction. That was something that still needs to be followed up on. And I'll tell you that behind the scenes, I'm real unhappy with how that's going, but to you, I'll tell you, we're working hard on it. So we've got some work to do there. Okay, I talked about that. Board minutes, and I think if you look at the minutes from our board meeting and some of the committee meetings handled just before our last board meeting, I think we're doing a bit better in terms of communication and describing some of the things that we're doing. That has been a sore point as well, that we've been actively focused internally, but not externally. We haven't been telling you what we've been doing well enough. You know, if you read through the board minutes, they have been a little bit too dry and too terse. And I think we're getting a little bit better at not only making the minutes clearer, but having some stories on the website and Arrl bulletins about some of the other things going on. So I hope we're continuing to move in that direction. And I actually hope that you can see the results from that. So I didn't look at the clock here, but I've probably talked way too much. 20 minutes, that's good. So why don't I stop talking and start listening what comments you guys may have, plus and minus, how are we doing? What do you want to know? And I'll tell you what I can. You have a mic that's
Here,
not working.
that I'll hand to you.
Thank you. Art WB2WFJ. I live in Killington. Where does ARRL stand now on membership, like a percentage of hams in the states or percentage of total hams or active hams? I don't know what statistics you keep on that. And is it growing?
I can lie with citizens hams. And there are about 116 or 17,000 ARL full members. And a full member is somebody who's not only, not a student member, but either a life member or is paying yearly dues. So that's a little under 20%. But if you measure by active hams, it's a lot different. Because of those 800,000 licensed hams, the number on the air is closer to 25% of them. We haven't done a careful survey in quite a few years, but the last time I measured, I spent several weeks just tuning around on 160 through 2 meters and writing down call signs. And then I had that list compared to the ARL membership list. And when I did that, the number of active hams was around 8%. I suspect it's a little less than that now. And even on VHF, it was closer to 60%. So depends on how you want to measure it, like you said. But the league has a pretty good percentage of the active hams. I guess I'll just say it that way. We'd love for it to be more. We've raised the dues a number of times over the years, and every time we do, obviously the membership drops a bit for a few years, and that's the case in the last few years. We not only raised the dues, but we took away the printed QST as part of the basic dues and made you pay extra for about what the postage is, about $2 a copy to get a printed copy. I think that was a mistake in how it was handled, but that's what the board did before I got back on it. So at this point, we lost a fair number of members last year, maybe 8,000 overall. This year, we're losing less per month. I don't have today's the last day of the month, and in a few days, I'll have the February numbers, but January was a fairly minor loss. January was a fairly minor loss. February, I hope, will be either similar or we'll start to see some growth again. Did I answer your question well enough? We grow it by providing good services and better communication with members. I mean, we have to be doing things that you believe is beneficial for you as a ham. And it's not just do we serve members well, but we also need to serve those that are not members because we want them to become members. And the work that we do in Washington with Congress and the FCC is for all members. And so that's why we hope that all members would consider becoming ARL members, because the work that, you know, the ones that are members are paying for your access if you're not a member. So anyhow, the short story is we grow our membership by improving our services and by delivering good results in Washington. Thanks.
Paul, AA1SU, I guess I have two questions. The first is the delete. Did anything come of that affected hams or that might in the future?
So far, the things that the FCC has deleted under that have not have been rules that didn't change anything. There was some older things that were still in the rules somewhere that they deleted, but they don't impact current activity. The ones that are left, we actually commented on the delete process to say, hey, don't throw away these items that have been requested. We still want to work through them and have filed some comments to support them. And
Okay.
so we're hopeful that that's not going to impact us.
And the other one is, so 60 meters still is not eligible for worked all states or DXCC. And I just like to say, I'd like to see that it would. And is that pretty much because it's shared with the government and
Yeah.
they don't want it too crowded?
Yeah, that's the main reason, is that we're not exclusive there. We're secondary and second to the government. And we've basically stated that we'll watch what kind of activity we put there to not cause any issues with the other radio services using that spectrum. Right now, we still have 4 channels that are allowed to be 100 watts. And then we've got a 20 kilohertz band that you're limited to 10 watts on because of changes made internationally. We're still hopeful to get 100 watts on the full, to keep 100 watts on that full spectrum, but that's going to come in the future.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions? Oh, I don't know you, do I?
I am so glad you mentioned about the fact that the league has some antennas that it's selling, right? So it's not just about books. And I was there 2 weeks ago and I bought, they have the aluminum antenna you mentioned was for 10 and 6. And I bought it and I put it up and it's awesome. But what's more important about that is in our club, we're trying to get folks that just got licensed to be active. And 6 and 10 is perfect for the new techs. And it's a very light antenna. You put it on a mast, you can put a TV rotor on it. So you don't have to spend thousands on a tower. It's a great product. You guys should all go get it. It's awesome. So sorry, I didn't have a question, but I think so. It's awesome.
I don't know. Who let you in here anyhow? That's Dennis and one IMW. You don't know Dennis? That's okay. New Hampshire section manager and wise guy. Good guy. Dennis, by the way, if you ever do an ARL booth with Dennis, you will not ever talk. He will do all the talking. He's incredible. He's a professional salesman. I guess I'll say it that way.
Come to Deer Fest and come to the New Hampshire tent and we'll all have fun.
Yeah, good. Anyhow, oh yeah, I should mention, I've got some cards for the Ham Expo in August. We're looking to grow it a little bit more this year. We did pretty well in getting a larger crowd last year and doing the same thing this year, trying to expand the flea market. We're already pretty full up on vendors. We're maybe going to have to expand the vendor area a little bit. We're almost to the point with Ham Expo that we might have to lease one of the neighboring buildings in order to have our vendor area. And the vendor space will be open, I believe, Friday night as well this year. So it'll be open a little longer hours. So anyhow, trying to make improvements there. Other questions that people may have? Arrl budget, just so you know, is around $15 million. It's been higher in the past, but we're down to about 15 million. Some of that is we got some better people in different slots in Newington. And in some places, we've got fewer people. And the other ones are being overworked. But it's a fun place to work. I mean, I worked there for 4 years, and I will say it's when I worked there, the most amazing thing to me was how many smart people worked there doing things they really like to do. A fair number of them are retired and have come from the corporate world and making a whole lot more money, but not having as much fun. So it's an interesting place. So come visit if you've never been to Newington. It's a good place. You can operate on during the day, and some weekends they have open as well.
Tom, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As the ACC, I'm curious, Vermont, New Hampshire, Vermont is one of the least populated states in the country. I've got some youth stuff coming up, and I'd like to get some traction down at the league. But I know, like, when you're talking small groups, it's kind of hard to get on the radar. And I'm sort of interested with the year of the club and doing some things like that. Do you think that's gonna open that up a little bit for us? Like, because I have teachers that ask me things, but I have like schools where I have like 6 or 8 kids interested. It's not a big number.
No, but there are a number of people in Newington that would connect through Zoom to do a back and forth presentation with your group. So I don't think it's impossible. A lot of it just has to do with scheduling. You can work through Steve, WV1X, or Steve Goodgame sometimes does them as well. He's been very active in the New York City couple of schools there, New York area. So it's not impossible. There's not as much travel that we're doing even to conventions. You get me?
Yep.
But I'm not a good one to talk about the
Well,
school
one of the
stuff.
groups is in Rutland, there's a military reserve center.
Yep.
Like the Army Reserve is there. And a group it's a group of kids from there who are connected to a school at the airport. And they've got money to travel. Like I could probably get them to Newington if I wanted to. It would be a small group, but it would be something I'd be interested in doing, and I'd be interested in sort of pushing that a little bit.
That might work out too, going there.
Okay.
But I think at the very least, getting somebody from Newington to connect with you up here would be the first step
Yeah.
to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I can connect with you and get a name.
If you don't, yeah, if you don't ask, you'll never find out. I guess I'll put it that way. Be squeaky.
Okay.
Okay.
So we got a question from Tom online. He says, it's been a long time since we've seen each other, Tom. How about a web page showing hands-free laws around the country?
You would bring up the website. The Arrl website is messy. It has not had a significant update for almost 15 years in terms of its software behind the scenes. It badly needs to be updated and improved. For me, the best way to search the Arrl website is to use Google. And it finds things better than the website's own search process. One of the things that the website does not have right now is even an up-to-date list of newsletters that we send out, like Arrl letter or club news or volunteer exam news. There's a place where stuff before May 2024 is listed, but nothing since that hack is listed. That's been a sore point of mine and of Phil K9HI, our vice director. So we've been twisting arms in Newington to get that moved up the queues to get at least brought up to current. Okay. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, Tom. I agree that would be useful to have. And even just, it may be that we can do something for the New England states as a start and do that off of the New England portion of the ARL website, the neddiv.arl.org, that we can probably put something together there. So I'll take that as a good suggestion and try to move with it. Okay, another 30 seconds. Any other
Any last questions?
questions, comments? Thank you all for coming. Much appreciated. And